If you'd like to live somewhere around the Portland metropolitan area with a little bit of acreage, this video is for you. We're going to key in on the areas and the towns that you're most likely to find a property with some acreage. Also the places where your dollar is going to go the farthest, so where you're really going to get the most value. And we'll talk about what it's like and what you'll need to know living on a property that has acreage, such as dealing with things such as septic and well. All that starts now. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Living in Oregon, I'm your host, Seth Marchant. I'm going to give you a handful of towns around the Portland metropolitan area that you're most likely to find some acreage. I'll tell you a little bit about the towns, and I'm actually going to show you some properties that are currently on the market, so you can really have a feeling or a sense as to what you might expect to get with at least a couple of acres around the Portland metropolitan area. Now first, this map that you are looking at is homes in any price range with at least 2 acres around the Portland metropolitan area. So just eyeballing this map, you can probably tell that for the most part, you can kind of find something with a little bit of acreage just about anywhere, with the exception of East Portland over here on the east side of the Willamette River, and then downtown over getting into the west side towards Aloha, Beaverton, Tigard. Those are probably going to be the exceptions. If money is no object to you, if you can spend at least $2 million, for the most part, you can find properties just about anywhere in the Portland metro area. But what about kind of like the more the average properties? What's it look like for properties just under $1 million? Then it's, as you can see from the map here, going to be a little bit more sparse. So what we're going to key in on here are properties that are kind of along the average price points, but that have at least 2 acres that they're sitting on. So the first place that we are going to start is we're going to go out this way towards HILLSBOR, where there is considerably more new development probably than anywhere else in the Portland metropolitan area. It's the 5th largest city in Oregon. It's just over 100,000 people. Really kind of the epicenter for high-tech industries, also known as the Silicon Forest. You've got companies there such as Salesforce, Nike, Oracle, Adobe, NVIDIA has an office there. You also have a lot of medical, education, and social services out there. So big hub for jobs out in HILLSBOR. You also have great access to shopping, wineries, lots of restaurants, and everything that I'm going to go through in this video is going to keep you roughly about 30 minutes within a drive of downtown Portland, which is kind of usually the magic number for most people. Most people don't want to be within or beyond 30 minutes of downtown or of the airport, which is just north up here of Portland. So what do you get in HILLSBOR? Under $1 million, at least 2 acres. I've got 2 properties for you to look at. The first one is a 4-bed, 2.5 bath. It's on 2.76 acres. That's what you're going to get for the most part, staying within about, like I said, about a 30-minute radius of Portland. Not going to find a whole lot of 5 to 10 acre stuff. Mostly going to be 2 to 5 acres. Listed at $822,000 and built in 1951. That is also a lot of what you're going to find is kind of mid-century for this price point, being under $1 million. This one says rare opportunity to own 2.76 acres in the gorgeous Shoals Wine and Orchard countryside. Now with that description, this property might give you a sense that it's going to be a little bit more rural. Probably true for the most part. Not necessarily always going to be rural living if you're having or if you're going to have at least a couple of acres. There are going to be some things that are going to be a little bit more inside of town, but for the most part, a lot of the HILLSBOR living, going to drive by a lot of undeveloped land, a lot of farms, a lot of things like that. So most of the properties, I would say, you're probably going to have more of a rural feel to it, but it doesn't necessarily always have to be the case. Some of these properties are going to be closer into town. And HILLSBOR being kind of more of a newly developed area, it definitely does have a new feel to it when you are in town. Next property here we're going to look at real quick, 3-bed, 3.5 bath, listed at $925,000. This is 1966 resale. And again, this one is just over 2 acres at 2.15 acres. And as you can see from the photos here, this property is gated. Probably not so common at this price point, under $1 million. Once you get kind of closer to that $2 million price point, anything with a couple acres oftentimes will be gated, whether it's rural or somewhere closer into the city, like a Lake Oswego, for example. If you're going to be close to the city and budget, there is no budget. If money is no object, a place like Lake Oswego is probably going to be about as close to the cities you can get and still get a couple of acres. But at that point, you're going to be probably looking well north of $2 million, probably, frankly, closer to $3 million. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the differences once we get through a few of these properties. Talk about some of the differences with living on a property that has acreage. Right, the next place that we are going to go is going to be on the other side of the Willamette River, over to the east side here in Oregon City. One thing I should point out about Oregon City living is that if you just do a quick Google search for Oregon City, look at the lines for the city, which you can see right here outlined in red. The zip code for Oregon City, 97045, is going to show you that the lines extend pretty far outside of city limits. So a lot of people that are living in Oregon City that are on a couple of acres are going to be out in these areas like Beaver Creek, Redland, places like that outside of actual city limits. And you can kind of see that from some of the red dots there on the map. Oregon City was the first city outside of the United States to be incorporated west of the Rocky Mountains. There's about 37,000 people that call Oregon City home. One of the most notable features is Willamette Falls, which is the second largest waterfall in North America by volume. The city's got a really great historic downtown. It's very vibrant down there. It's home to a lot of festivals and events. Got a pretty decent nightlife in Oregon City as well, just in my opinion. For the most part, towns that are kind of 30 minutes outside of Portland don't typically have the most vibrant nightlife, so that will be an exception in Oregon City. And for the town and just kind of the area in general, it's probably about as diverse as of an area as you can find. And of course, being very historic with homes that are well over 100 years old. Lots of homes built in the mid-century, and there's also a lot of new construction in Oregon City. Street of Dreams has also been here a few times. One thing that might be a little bit unique about Oregon City, I'll take you into the map here real quick. On the note of Street of Dreams, those few times that they were here, once was around Bullfrog Lake. It's actually a reservoir. Reservoir is a man-made lake. And then this one right here, Mompano. I'm not sure actually if you pronounce it Mompano. Everybody calls it Beaver Lake, that lives in the area. Street of Dreams was around this area. Those homes that are around the lake can oftentimes be close to around an acre or so, and usually price point around $2 million or so, roughly. You're also going to find a lot of equestrian properties. So if you want a space with some farm animals, or some livestock, chicken coop, something like that, Oregon City is going to be a great place for you. Poverty and unemployment are very low right now, and I found about 12 listings actually in Oregon City that are currently on the market. I'll take you to those listings now. So the first one is that I found actually a little bit unique. 4-bed, 3-bath, 3,967 square feet. So a large home built in 1990, so a newer home, or at least newer relative to the types of properties that you're typically going to see in this price point, under $1 million with at least 2 acres. Usually they're going to be built closer to mid-century. This one built in 1990. So $750,000. This one is listed as a fixer, so it looks like it needs quite a bit of work. One thing, if you're looking for a property like this, I did notice that they had listed on here that they would take a conventional loan, but and FHA was listed as well. Most likely a property like this, and just seeing this price point, $750,000, 4,000 square feet, 2 acres, within 30 minutes of Portland, that indicates to me it probably needs a large amount of work. This stuff is just not cosmetic. May need, a new roof, it looks like, looking through these pictures. And if the roof is any indication, and it usually is, how the rest of the home has been maintained over the years, could very well need something else major too, that a lender might require, that they won't actually fund the deal unless those repairs are done with a conventional or an FHA loan. And it did say that sold as is, seller to do no repairs. Now, for our contracts in the state of Oregon, technically anything that you buy is sold as is, unless specified otherwise. But what this means is seller to do no repairs. When you get an offer accepted on a home, you're going to have an inspection period, or at least you should. And post-inspection, oftentimes there are repairs or credits going to the buyer to do repairs that are negotiated. This one is explicitly saying up front that under no circumstances, doesn't say that, but that's what they mean, that the seller is not going to do any repairs. Now, so this is cautionary because conventional and FHA will not fund a property like this and without certain repairs. And so you might come to an impasse getting an offer accepted on a conventional loan when the inspector for that is ordered by the lender comes out and says, "Hey, we need a new roof." And the seller says, "Well, I'm not gonna put a new roof on there, so they're just gonna have to go back to market and find a different buyer." So this home most likely is going to require cash or what's known as a rehab loan. If you don't know about rehab loans or what that entails, and that's something that interests you, you can definitely get in touch with questions. In fact, if you have any questions about buying a home in the Portland metropolitan area, I invite you to call, text, email. You can click the link below in the description if you want to get a Zoom call scheduled with us, or you can hit that QR code that you see from TV2. That'll take you to our website with all of our contact information there. My name is Seth Marchant. I'm a licensed broker in the state of Oregon. I've helped a lot of people buy homes in Oregon, especially people that are relocating from outside of the state. All right, so on to the next one. This is going to be a little bit more average. 837,000, 3-bed, 2-bath, 2,300 square feet. Just been on the market for 8 days with 3.08 acres. Take you through some of the pictures on this. So 2007, like I mentioned, a lot of the properties that I was looking at and probably have on my list here for under $1 million with at least 2 acres are probably going to be closer to, like I mentioned, mid-century. So we're going to be getting something a little bit newer, but just eyeballing through some of the pictures here, looks like the home could use a little bit of work, and that's probably why you're getting a slightly newer, slightly larger home with, in this case, 3 acres for $837,000. Looks like, you could be in for 20, 30, 40, 50, maybe plus $50,000, $60,000 worth of work to put into this home. But probably when all said and done, it's probably still going to be under $1 million. Next one I have for Oregon City, then we'll move on to the next area. Now this one is built in 1968, although just eyeballing this one, looks like newer construction. Looks like it's in great shape. 3-bed, 2-bath, 2,348 square feet, listed at $850,000. Been on the market for a while though, 76 days, but you are getting 4.49 acres. So this will be one of the larger lots for the homes that I have on my list here, under $1 million. One thing that it mentions, this property is an ideal canvas for a hobby farm enthusiast because we've got fruit trees, looks like a bountiful garden it says, and a functional barn. Now if you do want a property, like I mentioned, that's going to be more of a farm style property, or property that can accommodate livestock or animals, Oregon City is a place that you are very likely to find that type of property. Zoning matters too. If you're not familiar with zoning, what types of animals you can have, how many you can have, how many horses you can have, really is going to vary from city to city in the Portland metropolitan area. Some places you're going to be able to have some of these animals within city limits, some places not. But like I mentioned, in Oregon City, a lot of these properties are going to be outside of city limits, so it won't matter too much. But definitely get in touch with us if you have questions about zoning. Next, we are going to go just north of Oregon City up into this area right here where it says Happy Valley. And I'm going to call this the Happy Valley area because this area right here, where you're going to find most of the rural properties, of which there are typically quite a few on the market, is going to be right on a corner that borders Gresham. Some of these addresses will also be Portland. Some will also be Damascus. And then there's also quite a few properties that get into Boring. If you're living in this area, though, you're probably going to be kind of Happy Valley living. In other words, you're probably going to be doing most of your shopping in Happy Valley. You're probably going to be going through Happy Valley to get to where you want to go, to get to 205, to go wherever your job may be. So some of the properties you're going to find out here might not have a Happy Valley address. I think the ones that I have on my list do, but just know this is an area that is going to have a high density of acreage properties, but really mostly be kind of connected to Happy Valley. So the first one I have here, 4-bed, 2-bath, 2,496 square feet, built in 1965, listed at $725,000. 2.51 acres on this property. I think for the most part, this property, like I've mentioned, kind of mid-century, about what you would expect to get between 2 and 3 acres. Looks like it could use some updates. Again, this is going to be within 30 minutes of the Portland metropolitan area. There's about 26,000 people that call Happy Valley home. It is a very safe area, so it's one of the lowest crime places in all of the state. Also kind of has a little bit of an insulated feel to it. Probably has the best shopping of anywhere that we'll look at today. From the Clackamas Town Center to Costco. There's a Trader Joe's right there. And then those things, those are going to be closer to I-205 over here. Closer to Clackamas. That's where all the shopping is. Out here towards Damascus, there is actually a brand new strip mall out there that pretty much has everything else that you might want, from restaurants to chiropractic, spas, salons, and then there's a Fred Meyer for most of your shopping. So either way, wherever you end up in Happy Valley, you're probably going to be close to pretty much all of the shopping that you could possibly want. Happy Valley is a little bit more of a bedroom community. You don't have all the jobs out in Happy Valley like you do in a HILLSBOR. You do have a Kaiser Permanente over there for all of you healthcare professionals. It also looks like this property comes with a shop. Looks like it's a 24 by 60 foot shop. It's got power. And again, these are the types of structures and things that are typically going to come with a property that's going to have some acreage. All right, now we're going to move just north of there to Gresham. The one thing I will say about Gresham is that your dollar will probably go as far, if not farther, with Gresham than anywhere else on our list. And you'll see that reflected by these properties here that I'm going to show you here in just a moment. There's about 113,000 people in Gresham, also known as kind of the Gresham Troutdale area. You might find something out in Troutdale as well, but currently there was not anything technically on the market in Troutdale. It was all kind of around this area. And if you go east, you're going to find even more rural properties. However, now you're kind of getting 30 to 45 minutes outside of Portland, moving up towards the gorge. Mount Hood Community College is there. There's a lot of economic growth out in Gresham as well, sort of similar to HILLSBOR in that a lot of the economic development is going both east and west. Going to be at about as close to Mount Hood as anywhere else on the list. Probably won't feel super rural to you in Gresham. You look at this map right here. For the most part, East Portland, Northeast Portland, Southeast Portland, all of this is kind of just one big grid. Makes it easy to remember just street numbers. If you're not very good with directions and getting around, just being able to count up on the street numbers, 82nd, 84th, 86th, so on and so forth. As you go east, you go out, is how it works. So let's take a look at a few of these properties. Like I mentioned, dollar is going to go about as far, if not farther, in this area than anywhere else. So in other words, real estate is less expensive here than the other places that are on the list today. First one, this one jumped out at me. You won't see this too often, but 6-bed, 3.5 bath, 5,400 square feet. You won't see a whole lot of 6 beds, especially listed at $850,000 with 2.47 acres, built in 1952. You can have a lot of natural light with windows like this and a property like this. Now, some of these properties, especially if you're getting towards that corner of Happy Valley, some of these properties will feel like rural living, but the closer you get into Gresham and Troutdale and get towards that grid, definitely will not feel very rural to you. So this property was listed at just under $1 million, $998,500 it says. It says the seller's reduction is to help you in doing upgrades that you desire. Seller's also willing to contribute $20,000 towards interest rate buy down, which is more common these days with rates being around 8% for a 30-year conventional. A lot of sellers are offering incentives to buyers, such as buying down their rate or helping with closing costs. I think probably just scrolling through, looking through these pictures compared to everything else we can see that we've looked at so far, probably does feel to you like this one, you're probably getting more for your money, probably getting more property and more home than anything else that we've looked at so far. How about the next one? Next one I have on the list here for Gresham, $940,000. And by the way, actually, this one actually had a Portland address. It is in Gresham. There are going to be a handful, like I said, it's right around that corner in Happy Valley where a handful of towns converge. But this is in Gresham. It's going to be a handful of places in Gresham where you can also put your list your address as Portland. So this 4-bed, 2-bath, 2,500 square feet, built in '79. Listed at $940,000, just under 5 acres with this one, 4.74 acres, described as a farmhouse with a creek trickling through it. It's also got a large shop. Again, this is going to be not too uncommon for these types of properties. Looks like it's had quite a few updates since it was built in '79. Also says it's located in Pleasant Valley. And per city land zoned a low density residential. So if you want to be in a low density area, that you would anticipate that if it feels rural now, it's probably going to feel rural in the future. This would be a good property for you. All right, and then finally we are going to move on to this one's kind of a bonus. This one's going to be for the most part a little bit outside of that 30-minute range. And I wanted to include it because there is a very high density of properties in this town and in surrounding towns. And it's also a very popular place, which is Newberg. This area, kind of heading southwest from Portland. What you're getting into here is known as wine country. There's a lot of kind of wine country areas around here, or areas that might be kind of referred to as wine country. Like you see that a little bit in Hillsboro because there are vineyards out in Hillsboro. There is wine country out in Hillsboro, but the real wine country for the Portland metropolitan area, for the Willamette Valley, is really kind of getting into this area, Newberg, Dundee area. And you'll notice it when you drive through. There's going to be a lot of vineyards just right off of the main highway. So within Newberg, there's about 25,000 people. And the great wine scene has also kind of attracted really just a growing culinary scene over the year, especially with the ever popular farm to table stuff. So you got a lot of that out there. Got a really charming downtown. A lot of cozy and quaint boutique type shops and cafes in Newberg. Life's a little bit slower over there. People are a little bit more friendly, and a lot of focus on sustainable living. Now, the one thing I would say about this area is that property is going to get a little bit trickier out here and going to be kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum from Gresham, in that real estate can kind of get more expensive out here. Typically, the closer proximity you have to like a major metropolitan area, the more valuable the real estate is, and consequently, the more expensive it is. Not going to be the case with wine country. Once you get out here towards Dundee and Newberg, property isn't necessarily less expensive. Now, if you were to go over here on the east side, just down here like south of Oregon City, where you would come to like Canby and Aurora, property is definitely less expensive down there. You don't have all the vineyards out there, but not the case with Newberg, Dundee. So dollar won't quite go as far, but if you want to be around wine country, if you're a wine drinker, this is going to be about as good as it gets, and really as good as it gets in Oregon. First property we have is a 4-bed, 3-bath, 3,170 square feet with 3.9 acres, listed at $825,000. This one is a 1933 resale, so this one almost 100 years old. Like I mentioned, Newberg is an older kind of historic type of town, so you will find quite a few properties like this. Now, I should also mention, too, in this area, there's about a dozen properties that are on 2 acres or more that are over $1 million right now. And this will be one of the areas in the Portland metro area that's going to have a higher density of properties that are between the 1 million and 2 million, or just 2 million plus on 2 acres. And again, a lot of that is wine country. There's been a lot of big homes that have been built recently out in wine country, as wine country has really grown in popularity over the last decade or so. So super popular area. area that's going to continue to grow, but it will not be inexpensive. This one also mentions sellers willing to contribute towards updates. So again, like I said, right now, good time to get some seller concessions if you are a buyer. And a lot of that is due to the rates, of course. Next one I have here for Newberg, 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,776 square feet, listed at $975,000, built in 1940. So we also have a one that's a little bit older, been on the market for 21 days now. Looks like it's in great shape though. So it's got an updated kitchen and a new roof on the shop as of last month. It also says seller financing is an option. That's another thing. You can reach out to us if you have questions about that. I'm guessing most of you watching, if you've ever bought a home before, you have not used seller financing. What that means is the owner of the property is willing to be the bank. I know that might sound a little bit funny. That might sound a little bit tricky. But the good news about those circumstances, which are not too common, is that right now most sellers are not going to be charging the same rates that most of your conventional lenders are going to be, which again was like around 8%. I've seen a lot of seller financing right now around 5%. So that could definitely be advantageous to the buyer if you can find a seller that's willing to carry the loan. So get in touch with any questions about that. This one, by the way, I don't think I mentioned it actually, I skipped over it. This one is on 28.44 acres. So you're getting a lot of property with this one. When you get into that much property, there may be additional things to know about the property as far as maybe the value or about maintaining the property. Certainly most of it is probably not going to be buildable, so it's not like you can just divide out this property and sell it. So a lot more to know when you start getting into that amount of acreage. Now, more importantly, I think, what do people really want to know that haven't lived on a property like this before? Because this comes up sometimes when buyers reach out to us and have a question about a property that has either septic or well. I think for most people that are not familiar with these things, if you've never lived on a property that has a septic system, the feedback I get from buyers when they ask questions about these types of properties is it just, I don't know what the right word for it is, but it just feels funny. It just feels weird. What a septic system, how does that work? So how it works is you got a big tank in the ground that is going to, everything that you put down your pipes, so this is not just your toilets, all of your sinks, anything that has running water is going to go into this system. These tanks are usually about 1,000 gallons. They typically need to be emptied by a big truck will drive to your house and they'll suck out all the stuff in there. Typically every 3 to 5 years, just depends on your usage, of course. So how often are you using the toilet? And then in this graphic here, you can kind of see you have what this is over here. You have a drain field. So all of the stuff that can get through a certain filter will go into drain fields, and the more solid stuff is going to have to get pumped out by a septic pumping company. And then typically, if you have septic, that means you probably don't have city water as well. So that means that you're probably also using a groundwater well. Like septic systems, sometimes people, when they learn that, they kind of get a funny look on their face, like, how does that work? Do I really want to drink from a well? I'd rather have city water. Wells are not terribly uncommon. In fact, I've got a little graphic for you here. The number of people in each county who use household wells, as you can see, very, very, very common in the Northeast, but for the most part throughout the country is very, very common. It's something like maybe 1 out of 7 people in the country are on well water. So it's not too weird. It's not something that's going to be a problem if you encounter a property that has septic and well. Usually a well, you should have an inspection at least about once every year or so. You should test the water about once every year or so, which can just be a couple $100, not super expensive. Also should keep logs on your well and any sort of maintenance, anything that you've done to the well. If you do have to replace something like a pump, for example, a well will have a pump in the system that pumps the water. Recently looked at a quote for a pump for a well for somebody, and that was $6,700. I think if you do a Google search for cost of well pumps, you might find that they're going to say more like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. Everything's a lot more expensive these days, though. Just remember. So probably going to be looking at more like $6,000 or $7,000. If you had to replace the entire well, then you're going to be getting up into the tens of thousands of dollars, maybe 30, 40, $50,000, just depends on the well and the circumstances. If you have to replace the septic system, those are probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood for a 1,000-gallon tank of about $15,000 these days. I would say for the most part, when you're living with septic, other than having it pumped every 3 to 5 years, you're not going to notice any difference. With wells, sometimes people say that they notice a difference, at least for the taste of the water, not having water that has anything added to it, like fluoride or chlorine, for example. Some places in the country might add those things to the city water supply, and some people say that well water actually is better, tastes better. So if you are living with a system like this, it might require just a few lifestyle adjustments, a few things to put into the calendar that you might not otherwise. But for the most part, I don't, it's not a whole lot different than living with city utilities. I don't hear too many complaints. In fact, over the course of your lifetime, over the course of a long period of time, over decades, it might be cheaper to have septic than whatever it is that you pay for city water, city sewer, rather. So if you're going to be buying a property with these things, you will most likely, or you very well should, have these things inspected, and that will be part of the process in buying the home. If you have more questions about these things, if you have questions about finding a rural property or what it's like to live in a rural property and what that means, things like septic and well, get in touch with us. My name's Seth Marchant, licensed broker in the state of Oregon. You can call, text, email, find all the contact information right there, wherever you see the QR code on the screen there. Our phone number, all the contact information in the description below on YouTube. And if you want to see more videos about what it's like to live in Oregon, what it's like to buy a home, what the real estate market is like, we have over 100 videos on our channel. We release new videos every week. Make sure and subscribe if you want to see more content like that. Give me a thumbs up if this video helped you. Lets me know I'm doing a good job. Feel free to comment. We'll reply back. And until next time, take care, everyone.